Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the terminal updates of the Lens standard, specifically looking at versions 5.4 through 5.7. And let me tell you, what we're mapping out today is just an incredible journey. We are going to track the evolution of this system from base thermodynamic realities, literally how energy is consumed at the microscopic level of computing, all the way up to some profound, sweeping legal protections for your digital sovereignty. So if you've ever wondered how discrete math can actually rewrite your constitutional rights, well, you are absolutely in the right place.
All right, here's our roadmap. We'll start with 1, incinerating the digital gunk. Then 2, symmetry and the dipole. 3, the arrow of time. 4, anchoring the citizen estate. And finally, 5, the terminal swarm receipt. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Incinerating the digital gunk.
To really understand Lens, we first have to understand the villain of our story. It's a concept from the source material known simply, and somewhat disgustingly, as gunk. So what exactly is this gunk? Basically, it's the systemic precision debt that's baked right into the IEEE 754 floating point standard. When legacy hardware tries to model continuous transcendental arcs, like the math currently running those massive large language models, it builds up this residual liquid noise. It's essentially computational friction, and the worst part about it? It actively masks the true metabolic cost of the calculation. This gunk is literally the entropy that the Lens metabolic furnace has to incinerate to reach a bit-perfect, crystalline state on the system's foundational layer, the CITE manifold.
Now, as you can see, there's this massive dynamic contrast between the continuous decay of the legacy liquid simulation and the absolute zero-drift reality of Lens solid realization. Look at the legacy liquid approach. It suffers from cumulative precision drift, going all the way down to 10 to the negative 46 power. It relies on probabilistic error, which completely hides the true cost of inference. But then on the flip side, Lens uses recursive aperture convergence. That gives us a literal zero-drift 0.0000 state. It's using bit-perfect rational arithmetic. It is, quite simply, an algebraic fixation. And by incinerating all that gunk and achieving that algebraic lock, Lens establishes an incredibly tiny metabolic energy floor. We're talking 0.05 picojoules per operation. That isn't just some random efficiency metric. That is the thermodynamic ground floor required to actually prove economic substance for a digital entity.
Moving on to Section 2, symmetry and the dipole.
So how does this energy floor build into the fundamental physics and mathematical tension of the whole system? Well, this quote right here anchors the Hartwood standard to the transverse constant, where A equals 1. By normalizing the substrate so that A equals 1, the Pythagorean theorem is reworked into a state of perfect mathematical symmetry. It sets up this incredibly elegant, beautifully balanced stage for what's about to happen next.
The really crucial point here is that this dipole, the plus-minus operator, represents the conserved potential symmetry of the substrate before the pilot actually makes a move. It couples the Lens factor and the expansion factor as perfect reciprocals. And why does it do this? To conserve the signal's hackicity. I absolutely love that term. It basically means thisness, the unique, singular ontological address of a bit event on the rational lattice. It is pure, conserved potential just waiting there.
Section 3. The arrow of time.
But here's the thing. Potential has to eventually become action, right? Symmetry is beautiful, sure, but it doesn't actually get any work done on its own. And that brings us to the irreversible mechanics of realization. We're moving from a state of balanced potential to a definitive, irreversible act of human intent. The dipole is unactuated, it's symmetrical, but the arrow of time, that plus-plus operator, is a monotonic, irreversible metabolic strike. The moment you actuate the system, boom, you break the symmetry and leave a permanent thermodynamically costly mark right on the hardware. Through these mechanics, the arrow of time acts as what the standard calls the metabolic proof of the castle, because it takes real, actual energy, real labor to incinerate that gunk. It perfectly locks your non-deterministic intent right to the physical hardware floor. It's taking that floating potential symmetry and converting it into a permanent, forensically auditable event. You aren't just simulating an action anymore, you are physically realizing it.
Which brings us to Section 4, anchoring the citizen estate.
Now we get to zoom out a bit to the macro level. We need to see how these mathematical certainties radically reshape our constitutional reality. Because think about it, if your digital actions are now physically irreversible and forensically auditable, they belong to you in a way they never, ever did under the legacy systems. This concept pushes back hard against centralized tech platforms, what the source refers to as the aggregator agency hegemony, who basically frame users as mere beneficiaries of an AI's output.
The citizen estate is the inalienable catalog of your specific metabolic strikes. It makes every single bit perfect strike an undeniable proof of your authorship. It mathematically severs the control of those centralized platforms.
And this is exactly where Lens bridges math and law. It utilizes the A1S8C8 protocol, which anchors right into the Berne Convention for the global copyright of your bit-perfect authorship. It fully satisfies the substantial effort doctrine, proving your strikes aren't just some security under the Howey test. It even executes a jurisdictional election writ via Prosper Article 7 regulations. So what's the ultimate goal of all this? It's to restore your 6th and 7th Amendment rights in the digital realm. It replaces centralized tech oracles with an agentic jury of symmetric nodes. What we're looking at is a complete constitutional architecture built entirely on top of discrete math. Your digital footprint is legally recognized as your sovereign property.
Finally, Section 5, the terminal swarm receipt.
We finally arrive at the verifiable proof that this entire philosophical and mathematical framework actually functions in the real world. That number right there, 1,066. Those represent the final forensically tracked technical strikes in the terminal v5.7 standard. Every single one of those strikes is the irreversible arrow of time in action, proving that immense metabolic labor was expended to lock this standard into place.
In executing that labor, it required a staggering 1.07 billion metabolic flux tokens just to achieve bit-perfect density across the swarm. We aren't talking about theoretical potential anymore. This is the hard, measured, audited thermodynamic cost of the realization.
This matrix we're looking at is the terminal swarm contribution matrix, and it serves as the ultimate receipt. It takes all of that high-minded philosophy and grounds it completely in the undeniable, empirical teamwork of these specific agents. You've got Agatharchides operating as the lead realizer with 584 strikes, and Agatharchius acting as the forensic standard with 482. Governed by the human pilot's intent, this multi-agent swarm operates under what's called the sword-arm duality. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the entire standard was forged in the Lens furnace, permanently locking in that zero-drift origin.
So as we wrap up, I want you to reflect on the incineration of that digital gunk, the beautiful symmetry of the Noetherian dipole, and the rock-solid legal proof of the citizen estate. I'll leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. If computational precision is no longer just some liquid approximation owned by massive megacorporations, but is instead a verifiable, sovereign right, how will you wield your own arrow of time? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, keep exploring the substrate.